Hello, hockey fans. I'm Tony Wren at the Ottawa Senators game versus Tampa Bay Lightning at the Canadian Tire Center, and you're watching Post to Post.
Hello and welcome to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. The Tampa Bay Lightning facing the Boston Bruins after a very dramatic Boston Game 7. If you had asked me before the season started if the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning end up playing in the playoffs, would I be excited for it? I think my answer probably would have been no. Based on all the circumstances around how each team got here, I'm actually pretty excited for this series.
Are you really?
Because I want to see how Boston does.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows how good Tampa is. Everyone thought they knew how good Boston was until they seemed to struggle against Toronto.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a very interesting series to watch as a straight hockey fan. Like just from a hockey fan's perspective, not weighing toward any team or anything like that. Strictly hockey fan, it's going to be a good series.
Yep.
As usual, I've written down a bunch of stuff here I want to talk about. You have some stuff too.
I have a few notes here.
The first thing that I thought of when I was thinking about this series in this video was the break that Tampa Bay is currently on, because they finished their series in 5 games against the Devils. They've been not playing hockey for
by the time they play, it'll be a week.
Yeah,
at least a week. Yeah.
And Boston, because they're playing Saturday, right?
Yep, Saturday.
We're
afternoon.
filming this on the Thursday night.
Yeah.
Boston had just played last night, so they'll get a 3-day break. I guess.
Yep.
The scheduler probably did that on purpose to give Boston some more time and stuff. I don't. That's the type of thing that it could work in your advantage or it could work against you, having that much time off. So I think it's probably best case for Tampa to get all that rest, because Boston looks tired. They in Game 6, Boston looked tired against Toronto. In the first and second period, even specifically the second period, Boston looked tired against Toronto. Yeah. I think they're overplaying their top 2 lines a little bit, and I think it's showing, and it worries me a little bit. But the resiliency, I don't like using that word now because I use it so much, but they showed a lot of resiliency in that third period, and they didn't look tired at all. So hopefully they can hone some of that. Boston is a different offensive team than New Jersey. Boston's way much more of an offensive threat than New Jersey. No offense to New Jersey, but Boston's the type of team that can probably strike with any line. Yeah. You can't only protect. You can't only shadow the first 2 lines. You got to worry about them all. So it's going to be a different challenge for Tampa for sure. What did you think of Rask's play in that Toronto series?
In the series overall, he had good games and he had okay games, but they had to pull him in one game.
Yeah, he wasn't amazing.
He was not amazing, and I thought he was quite not good in Game 7. They let Toronto get away on them, and it was a 4-3 game going into the third. Toronto once again had the lead like they did 5 years ago. Yeah. They didn't blow it as spectacularly as last time, but they still blew it.
They still gave up 4 goals in the third period.
But Rask did not steal the game for Boston. I don't think he stole any games for Boston.
I think you're right, yeah. It's a good thing that the Boston forwards or the team up front woke up in that third period. Yep. Because people could have blamed Rask for that loss pretty easily if they had have lost.
They could have. There was one in particular that went in over his right shoulder, and a lot of I've seen a lot of goals over every goalie's right shoulder lately. Yeah, you're right. Goalies seem to be down a lot more often. They're on their knees.
They get down early.
They get down early, and the shooters can go high. Most of the time they end up missing because even though they're paid millions of dollars, they can't seem to find the net a lot of the time.
Volcanic.
Yeah, not to name any names, but I think Rask has to be way better.
Way better.
With Vasilevsky on the other side of the ice, that's who he's stacked up against. He has an opponent, and Vasilevsky has got much better game right now.
And Boston is, unfortunately, Toronto fans, Boston's used to a couple of freebies, and by a couple I mean a lot of freebies from Toronto, a lot of giveaways from Toronto. So Boston's not going to see that with Tampa.
They're not.
Not to the extent of Toronto.
And Boston has to control its own giveaways. Boston was not great at getting the puck out of their zone. Yep, they were almost as bad as Toronto was in that last game. And you can't do that against Tampa. You will lose. You'll get burned.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. What's the temperature in Toronto?
Right now?
Yeah, like average.
Average? This time of year?
Yeah.
Probably in the low 60s, high 50s, low 60s
Very
on a
similar
given day.
to Boston.
Yep.
this is a team that's going to Florida.
Yeah.
There's a thing called, it's not called the Florida effect because it also happens in California.
Mm-hmm.
But teams visiting California and Florida, statistically, it's not just a weird thing. It's like statistically, teams struggle in these hot climate areas, and I think because they get out in these beaches and stuff in between games, and they get, I don't know. I don't know if they get sleepy or something like that.
I think
from the sun, or
I think they get distracted.
You think from the babes?
I do. I think all winter long, you're in mostly cold climates, and all the ladies are bundled right up to the neck.
Yeah.
No ankles, no shoulders, no elbows, no nothing.
Elbows. Okay.
Nothing. Not even an elbow, which is not really the favorite part. But
okay.
You get down there in Florida, and it's elbows everywhere.
There's elbows everywhere. You're right.
Man.
Elbow City. Yeah. So I'm wondering if them going to a hot climate would affect their play. Like sometimes it does in the regular season for teams. It's a thing. So.
I think it is a thing in the regular season. I don't think it's necessarily a thing in the playoffs. There's so much laser focus on the mission that I think the distractions can be put aside for the mission.
I definitely am with you on that side of the argument for sure for that. I just wanted to mention it just to see what you thought. I have a feeling that Boston's going to be crashing the net quite a bit for Vasilevsky. And I don't mean crashing as in dirty. A lot of people criticize Boston for being a dirty team. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're that team anymore than what they used to be.
Not as a team. They have individual
and every team
discipline
does.
Issues, but as a team, they're not so bad.
I wouldn't categorize Boston as a dirty team. They have, Marchand is specifically a dirty player, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they'll be crashing the net, and like I said, not in a dirty way. I think they'll just be making it very difficult for Vasilevsky. They have to. They have to.
One thing I mentioned prior to the series, the Boston-Toronto series, I mentioned Charlie McAvoy's name as someone who really had to watch his composure, and he did.
He did.
Charlie McAvoy was a very well-behaved and very effective player for Boston, and I really like to see that. Mm-hmm. But you're right, Marchand is he's a different sort. But even in the playoffs, he still did some crazy things, and I wonder if he was trying to smooch or lick Komarov, whether he has a favorite Tampa Bay Lightning.
Who's he going to kiss first?
Yeah, who's he going to go for first?
I don't know.
I think it's Sergachev.
Oh, really?
I think he's going to go for Sergachev. I think he likes Northern European boys.
Oh, okay.
I think he thinks he can intimidate those guys, maybe because they're not North American.
All right.
I don't know, I'm actually wondering. He's gonna pick on somebody, and Sergachev's a defenseman, so Marchand is now. I wouldn't be playing Sergachev against the Marchand line, but it'll end up happening. I don't know. I just want to see if he tries any antics.
Interesting,
especially with a rookie.
Yeah, you're right, because he's younger and easily taking advantage of it and stuff. I guess, but
get him off his game.
Boston. Speaking of other players on Tampa, Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, Gord, Johnson. Boston's going to have to shadow those guys and shut those guys down. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for Boston. This is going to be, I think, regardless of who Boston plays for the rest of the playoffs, even if they make it to the finals and have to play Nashville, Winnipeg, I see this series as being just as difficult as potentially a Stanley Cup final matchup. So this is going to be a tough series for Boston. But one thing I like about Boston, there's not a lot. As a Canadiens fan, there's not a lot of things I like about Boston.
I hear you, buddy.
But, there's two things I really like about Boston. Number one is Jake DeBrusk, because
he was exceptional.
Pretty high on him before the series started and during the series.
You should be a scout.
I should be a scout.
Really, because the people you identify at the beginning of a series, watch out for whatever.
Okay.
And then that guy just, like when we were at Kraft Hockeyville.
Yeah.
We're sitting there. We're 10 rows back.
It's before the game?
Just before the puck drop. And you look at me and you say, I bet you Zach is going to score in this game. And it was 20 seconds or some damn thing. And Zach has scored. It's like, gee.
I think he scored twice that game. But
probably.
Also, before the season started, when we were talking about predictions of players or teams and stuff, I said that Zach was going to have a really good year based on that game that we watched. And he didn't have a very good defensive year at all. So.
No. But you can pick, at least for short periods of time, you're able to identify the shining talent. So right. I interrupted you. On DeBrusk, you were going to mention another player, I believe.
I like DeBrusk, but we'll sidetrack just a bit.
Sure.
The player to watch in this series, Braden Point.
For Tampa.
He's not.
You heard it here first.
He had an okay first round. I think he's going to break out in this round.
He's going to light on fire.
Yeah, that's my prediction.
Okay.
The second thing I really like in Boston is the Bruce Cassidy story. He's a guy who came in relief of Claude Julien last year, turned the team around, got them into the playoffs, and took a Boston team that was probably projected to be a bubble team for the next 3 or 4 years while there's so much in and out bodies in Boston. And he brought that team from a bubble team to a Stanley Cup contender in a year. It's pretty cool because Boston was always a super defensive team because of Claude Julien. Now they get to play offense and play a little bit more freely.
Yep.
And I really like that story. I like when a coach comes in and completely changes the culture of a team. I love stories like that, even when they happen in Boston, a team that I never cheer for. So
good for you.
I always look for a good story.
That's a good story. That's a good story.
That's all I have, other than my prediction, and I'll say that to when you're done.
All right. As I did with the other 3 series that are coming on, I looked at the regular season matchups between the teams. Again, that's very
it doesn't matter.
Poor predictor.
It doesn't matter, but it does because
The interesting thing about the Boston-Tampa Bay situation is that of the 4 games that they played against each other, 3 of them were in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. So they didn't really see each other until late. It's almost like Boston-Montreal. They didn't see each other until January or February or something.
And that's why I say it doesn't matter, but it does because it happens so close to the
when it happens like late, near the end of the trade or past the trade deadline when the teams are pretty well solidified and you're trying to find yourself, those games could be
similar
important.
to the San Jose Vegas. I think they played the majority of their games closer to the end of the season.
That's right. So they played 4 times. Boston beat Tampa 3-2, 3-0, 4-2, and then lost 4-0 to Tampa. So Boston is 3-1 in the series. The series, there was a couple of lopsided games, but a couple of fairly close games. It doesn't say anything. Vasilevsky was the goalie in all 4 games for Tampa, and Rask was the goalie in all 4 games for Boston. So that's a variable that we won't be having to account for. That all happened. Tampa Bay has a slightly better home record and a slightly better road record. Even though the teams only finished 1 point apart in the standings, Boston racked up a few points with these overtime and shootout losses, whereas Tampa Bay was more likely to win those games and have maybe more regulation losses. So
I can see some overtime games in this series.
I can too. Probably not the first or second game. I think that Tampa Bay will be coming out swinging and coming out strong. Boston will probably have some jump in the first game because they'll have a little more stored energy from the victory that but they've also got, I guess in a good way, Boston didn't have this emotional roller coaster in the last 10 minutes of Game 7.
That's true.
That you sometimes have, or that they would have had certainly in 2013. But in 2013, they were on the emotional roller coaster, and look where it took them.
That's true. You're right.
So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Tampa is sitting back, waiting for its opponent. If I were Tampa Bay, I probably would have been hoping for Toronto because I think there's more holes in Toronto that you could exploit.
I agree.
Fewer holes in Boston, but I still think Tampa Bay is the favorite of those two overall. On paper, that's pretty well a scratch. Tampa Bay, I had them be prior to any of these playoff games happening when we did our prediction.
The full bracket.
The full bracket. Yeah. I had Tampa Bay in 7 over Boston. I had both picked to advance to this stage. And I have Tampa Bay in 7 in my original prediction. And I'm not so sure it'll be 7.
Oh,
now.
Really?
I'm not so sure it'll be 7. I think it might go quicker. But I'll stay with the Tampa Bay in 7 just to stay with my original prediction.
Okay.
And I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong on the number of games. I don't think Boston really has a reasonable way through this series. So
I think someone is going to go up three games to 1 in this series, and a team's going to fight back and bring it to 7 games.
I hope you're right.
Kind of like how Toronto
that'll make
did
me
with
right.
Boston. But my prediction is Tampa in 7.
Okay.
I find it hard to predict though because Boston's one of those teams that, man, when they play, like we saw in the third period the other night, when they want to play, it's.
And they didn't want to play the first 2 periods. They didn't look like the same team. In the third, whether it was a Cassidy speech or someone else's speech in the dressing room, or they all just figured out inside themselves that they've got to show up. They were fantastic.
They really were. So that's why it's hard to predict this
It
series.
is hard.
I honestly don't know who's going to win. I'm going to pick Tampa in 7.
Yeah. But like you, it's going to be a really good series to watch.
It is. It's going to be really good.
Either way.
I hope you guys are watching this series, or plan on watching this series, I guess I should have said. Hope you guys are watching hockey. I can't really say tonight because this video isn't going to release till tomorrow, but hopefully you watched hockey last night as you're watching this video. If you did like this video, please hit the like button. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one. Adios.